So let's go ahead and take a look at the definition of maximum medical improvement, MMI, or permanent impairment, okay? So maximum medical improvement, MMI. It's the point at which the condition of an injured person is stabilized, no further recovery or improvement is expected, even with additional medical intervention. So permanency is a condition is permanent if it is believed that the condition will not change or progress. So this is a major definition for MMI. So the guidelines for permanency after maximum medical improvement. So the very first thing you have to do before you get the impairment is you have to have MMI. What's the definition of MMI and what is it based on? So you got to be real clear about these points. What is the definition of MMI? How does it relate to impairment? And what is MMI based on? Okay? So no further recovery or improvement is expected. No subjective or objective changes. After 12 months of the initial onset of injury, and maximum 2 re-exams showed no subjective or objective improvement, preferably during the remodel phase. So let's go into this just a little bit. So when we look at MMI, it's based on the 3 phases of healing. Well, what's the time frame of the 3 phases of healing? There's the inflammatory phase, right, first 72 hours. There's the repair phase, up to 3 months, 6 weeks to 12 weeks, so up to 3 months. And then you got the remodel phase from 3 months to 12 months. And at the end of that 12 months, essentially the healing process is done. Okay. Now, does that mean that you're not going to improve any more past that? No, you could improve more. Does that mean you can't give an impairment prior to 12 months? No, you can't. But it's a judgment. You got to make a judgment. And then that judgment is going to be based on the 3 phases of healing, that timeline, and the patient's response to care. So what I always say is, how much sense would it make to stop the care and call it MMI if the patient hasn't even gone through the repair phase yet? Wouldn't make a lot of sense, would it? I mean, you're not even giving them the opportunity to heal. Now, that also is dependent on the condition, right? So what if somebody had an amputation and the limb was gone? You're not going to get the limb back. Okay? Can I pretty much call it an impairment immediately? Do I have to wait for the repair phase? You get my point? Okay, so we can, but with what we're dealing with, the soft tissue spinal injury, we should at least give the person the opportunity to heal in each of the 3 phases. Now, what I always suggest is definitely, you definitely don't want to call it MMI in the impairment phase with the soft tissue spinal injury. Or in the inflammatory phase. You don't want to call it in the repair phase, because there's still great opportunities to heal and get better. And this is one of the reasons, when attorneys try to shut the case down early, sometimes they shut it down before the repair phase is finished, and that's a major mistake. They don't realize they're actually hurting the case. And this is so important that you educate these attorneys. And then you go into the remodel phase. And so what I suggest is a bare minimum. Call it MMI in the remodel phase when you have at least 2 re-exams of no subjective or objective improvement. That would be the absolute earliest that I could make sense of it to a jury. Does that make sense? In other words, I gave them the chance to heal in all 3 phases. Are you with me? See, I can make sense of that. I can say that to a jury. So you don't have to wait 12 months to give an impairment rating. But by definition, what's the time frame of the 3 phases of healing? By definition, a year. And then if there's no subjective or objective improvement after a year, then we can definitely say, okay, this is it, they're done. by definition. But definition's not clinical. It's not practical, right? So I'm just saying for the practical clinical perspective, I would at least let them get through the inflammation phase. And remember, I'm talking about the soft tissue spinal injury. Let them get through the inflammation phase. Let them get through the repair phase. Give them the opportunity. In other words, if I do a re-exam in the repair phase and I see no improvement from one re-exam to the next, am I going to call it MMI? No, I'm not. Why? There's still time in the repair phase. There's still opportunity for that person to heal. Are you with me? So even though I don't have any improvement, I'm like, no, I'm not going to put the brakes on this thing. We're still healing. Give the person a chance. Okay? And then get it into the remodel phase. And so that's why I say the earliest that I would call it is in the remodel phase. That's the earliest that I would call it, that I could make sense to a jury.